point of view, if you ask for something publicly and they just ghost you like that, because that's what Jason Levan and DC United did. They ghosted Wayne Rooney. They basically said, I don't want to break up with you, please break up with me kind of thing, okay? If they do that to you, go. Do your thing. Go somewhere else. You owe DC United nothing. You brought DC United back from relevance as a player where many doubted you, and you tried to do it as a manager, and they wouldn't budge. They wouldn't help you out. Jason Levan, the owner of DC United, he let go of a GM who brought in Hernan Lozada, and then they have a GM who brings in Wayne Rooney. That GM is let go as well. So now he wants more say and more power on what he does and how he builds DC United. More power to him. I have more faith in Mark Ingram, who's an owner in DC United, than I do Jason Levan. That's a reality. That's a reality. Because Jason Levan DC United stood by when Ben Olsen was mediocre with DC United. A lot of that could be DC United, and a lot of that could be that he's just a club legend and placekeeper, if you will. But you see what Ben Olsen's doing now at Houston. You see what some of these managers could actually do with a little bit of resource, with a little bit of continuity there, continuing there, if you will.
Continuity.
Thank you, producer. Continuity. But that's not been the case. So I'm cool with Wayne Rooney. I mean, I guess I'm cool with the owner doing what he wants to do, because it's your team. If you want to have a terrible team, if you want to have a team that's never going to do anything, that's irrelevant, you're the one spending millions of dollars to do it. So go ahead.
Herc, I'm not convinced that Wayne Rooney is a good coach, right? He's got 10 wins in 34 this year. Didn't really do much last year, even though it was a terrible situation when he takes over. And I think if you look at his time at Derby County, there's a pretty big asterisk there, right? When they're docking you points, you got to take that into account. But I think the real story here is organizational dysfunction. This is not a Wayne Rooney thing. Wayne Rooney did have some resources, though, that Ben Olsen never had. Ben Olsen never had the fifth highest budget in terms of spending for players in Major League Soccer. Wayne Rooney did have that this year, and on top of that, he had a lot of control. You mentioned the general manager situation. They fired Lucy Rushton in October of 2022, almost a year ago. And in that power vacuum, Wayne Rooney was really making a lot of decisions. He brought in a guy like Ravel Morrison. That was a disaster, just backfired totally for DC United. And as you well know, Herc, when you spend money on a guy and then that guy, for either injury or in this case, other reasons, disappears, it's hard to make that up in an MLS roster. It's hard to make that up in the salary cap. I'm really sad that this is the ending. And I got to say this. If you're going to give a guy like Wayne Rooney the power, the control, and the spending power, right, that they gave this guy, you almost have to let him stick around for another year. And this is the argument that I made when they first ghosted him. When 2 months ago, Wayne Rooney came out and said, hey, I've called, I've asked, I've said I want to stay. And there was a contract option for both sides. So it is. I think this is more on DC United than Wayne Rooney. And I think it's an indictment. When you ghost a manager, right, we know you're not doing things well. We know you're not taking care of business. And I'm very interested to see not just kind of who takes this job next, but who wants this job next, Herc. Because as the LA Galaxy, I got some faith. You might be able to recruit some stars. You might be able to make the team interesting. As a DC United fan, man, things are going from bad to worse. And I don't really have a lot of faith that this club is ever going to turn around, Wayne Rooney or not.
You mentioned they're fifth in spending. So if you're going to spend money, Wayne Rooney went when you had one of the worst teams in terms of spending and in terms of results on the field, and he was a megastar in the game of football. So it can happen, Seb, but you're right. It's organization. So I don't know who's going to want it, but somebody will.